Good morning, everybody. It's yours truly, Crusty Canuck here on this fine day. And today I have a special guest. I'm just setting up there. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Crusty Canuck Thursday Fastball Special Wednesday edition. Today I have a very, very special guest, NHL great, former Calgary Flame, Olympic gold medalist, philanthropist, sexual assault survivor, author, motivational speaker, Mr. Theo Fleury.
All right,
Mr.
sir.
Fleury, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Not a problem. For my first-time viewers, for people who don't know who you are exactly, I gave you, I think, a lengthy intro. Just please give a brief on your background, who you are, what you do, and what motivates you to do what you do today.
We don't have enough time for that, so.
Oh, okay. So you can summarize it then if you can.
Well, I'm a ex-professional hockey player. Played 15 years in the NHL. Had crazy amount of success. But the whole time I was in the NHL, I was carrying around a secret from my childhood. And in 2009, I wrote a book sort of exposing that secret for the first time. And it really sort of catapulted me into the space that I'm in today. For the last, almost 13 years, I've worked in the field of trauma, mental health, and addiction. And, I think I've done like over 800 speeches talking about the subject of trauma, mental health, and addiction, and how it's all connected and whatnot. What else? I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I'm a singer, songwriter, musician. What else do I do? I think, obviously the biggest epidemic on the planet is not COVID-19. It's actually mental health and suicide is the biggest epidemic on the planet. And, obviously COVID is the most traumatic thing that's happened since World War II. And we're definitely seeing the effects of lockdowns and isolation and
big time,
all that stuff. So yeah, and I'm a political junkie too at the same time. So
I really don't blame you. I don't blame anybody for being a political junkie. Well, that's usually the basis of my work, especially now, like you mentioned. COVID isn't a bad thing, but it is a bad thing because we all know it's a respiratory infection. It does affect the elderly, people with resting conditions already. But every time I see the stats and numbers, it's like, well, okay, I understand basic ratios from public school, but where are these ratios coming from? I just heard in the news today, Toronto has experienced something like 1,200 new cases, and they have 51 people in the ICU, and then they're all up in arms. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Metropolitan Toronto was roughly about 2.5 million people last time I checked. So I think there's quite a few hospitals there that can look after that. It's not like you're in Bashaw or Camrose.
right.
It's the population density is there, so it can be looked after. What motivates you, I'd say, more so now than, let's say, then, to do the work that you do?
Well, like I said, when I wrote my book, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, really. All I had was this story, and I'd heard a lot of statistics around the subject before I went out on the book tour, and that's exactly what happened. I got completely run over by people who were, 5, 10, 15, 20 people were coming up at every book signing, telling their Me Too story. And, and that hasn't stopped, obviously, in the last, several years that I've been doing this. And, that they say that, the stat, sort of, there's more women that are, sexually abused than boys. But after being out on the road for 13 odd years, I believe it's equal. Just as many boys get molested as girls. And, what we're seeing on the southern border right now is an increase in child and human trafficking at the U.S.-Mexican border. And so, the most lucrative business on the planet is not Amazon. Mm-hmm. It is actually child and human trafficking, which brings in $150 billion a year.
Holy shit.
And, actually makes $60 or $70 billion more than the most successful business on the planet. And so, I've been called a conspiracy theorist because, apparently this is a QAnon thing. But, when I go on DuckDuckGo or Bing or Google and I punch in, human trafficking, one of the first lines is, this is $150 billion industry, right? So it's scary. It's scary stuff, what's happening, in the world. And how many, what do they say? This type of ideology has been implemented 24 times in the history of the planet. Mm-hmm. And 24 times it's failed. Mm-hmm. And 100 billion people have died. And so, here we are again, at this place, and it's not going to work. It's never worked. It's not going to work, because what happens is, one of the worst addictions you can have is the addiction to power. Okay. And, in my lifetime, this is the worst global leadership that we've ever had in the history of our planet. Okay.
I would concur. Yeah. Big time.
And what happens is these clowns, eventually eat each other. Right. But unfortunately, it takes 20 years for that to happen. And so I'm hoping that this time around that, people wake up and realize that, this type of system, doesn't work. Nobody prospers from this other than the people that are addicted to power. Yeah. And we're already seeing a case of them eating themselves with Governor Cuomo and in New York, right? They're all turning on him, really quick, and that didn't take long. So,
well, especially with certain publishers and stuff trying to ban books, i.e., the Dr. Zeus thing, Pepe Le Pew. I'm sure you grew up with Pepe Le Pew as much as I did, and we used to find that hilarious.
Yeah.
The female cat trying to get away for dear life not because he was an aggressive, male, because he stunk. He smelled bad. And I'm sure with your time in hockey, hockey gear, dirty jerseys, I played a bit of lacrosse. So yeah, that gear gets pretty stinky, pretty bad. So yeah. You want to finish the game, get this shower and go home and just carry on.
Yeah.
So right now, like you say, you're a bit of a political junkie. Like say my show too. I always discuss politics.
No.
It's not the Canada that I fought for as a soldier. I'm sure it's not the Canada you grew up in. What is your projection for, let's say, a spring election or a fall election?
Well, the Liberals are going to steal the election.
Do you think?
Simple as that. No question. Yeah.
With the UBI, with all this incentive and the handouts, of course, people like the freebies, but you and I both know there's no such thing as free money. It's usually earned or it's given based on compensation. But needless to say, there's always a tax loop or someone's going to get screwed one way or the other.
Well, the UN is already running Canada. Let's face it. The UN is running Canada, which, is influenced by, that big Eastern country, across the ocean. And, I believe that our prime minister is being blackmailed because that particular country has all the dirt on him. And there's lots of it. If you do your research, there's enough dirt on, our prime minister than, every day it's a new scandal,
Oh, of course.
It's unbelievable. Oh. It's unbelievable. And the fact that, we allow this in our country. I thought we were way better than that, and like guy gets caught wearing blackface, and in any other country he would be, fired.
Oh, no doubt. If he was an entertainer, he'd be all over the tabloids.
He stands in front of the podium and lectures me that I'm a racist. How the hell does that work? It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Well, it's not the liberal model that I definitely grew up with. And the idea of liberalism that we were taught as children, the live and let live policy, you may disagree with somebody, but the whole honor code of fighting for someone's right to say it, you're granted. Now that's out the window. You can fight for someone's right to say this as long as they walk this line or talk this way. It's almost like back in the service again. Right. But even some of the vets I've talked to in regards to this whole dilemma since 2015 or even prior, they're kind of shaking their head thinking, well, I can't afford to leave now. And if I do leave, this is what's going to happen. And if I say this is what's going to happen. And it's just, pardon my expression, it's a real shit show. It's, I myself, I'm a candidate for a party, Veterans Coalition Party. And we're all made up of veterans. I think we have a couple extra hockey players too. I'm not sure, but it's getting bigger, and it's promotes all walks of life and representing.
That's what happens when people aren't happy with leadership. We're seeing all these new parties being formed all over the place. And so that further divides the sort of the political playing field, right? And and I think ultimately that's what's going to get Trudeau reelected again, is all of these different parties who basically have the same sort of message, are all splitting off all over the place. And I played a lot of team sports, and when we were struggling in a slump, that's when cliques develop in your system, in your team, right? And when that happens, the season's over, and it doesn't matter how hard you play or how good you play, you're never going to win. And so every time the Liberals get an opportunity to divide the country, they jump all over it, lock, stock, and barrel. It's unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic when you mentioned when the season's over and the cliques start. We could exchange stories about cliques and little groups all the way back from high school. And you think when you leave high school, you leave that kind of mentality. But then the bigger the conglomerate, the bigger the power of that conglomerate, then there's that little tribal divide,
I think for every new party that comes along, Trudeau is happier than a pig in shit when that happens, because if there's no unity on the other side, then he knows that he has a way better chance of winning, right? And so that's why every opportunity they get to divide the country, they do it.
So where's your stance then politically? Like, say, if they call an election, I'm not going to ask you who you voted for.
Yeah.
It's not my concern.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say they call an election in June, right? What are your basic principles when it comes to voting? What do you want to see Canada become, or remain, or become stronger, economically more sufficient, definitely more freer? So.
Yeah, I'd like to, I'm from Western Canada, okay? And the only thing I know how to do is work. That's it, And, I live in a city where I drive downtown and, it's a ghost town,
Yeah.
And we were well on our way to becoming the global capital for oil and gas, in the world. And, every single oil company has gone to Texas. They've taken their equipment, they've taken everything, and they've left. And, the liberals have this, this green plan, but there's no such thing as green technology. There is no such thing, because every green technology needs oil and gas to either be, needs oil and gas to manufacture wind, need oil and gas to manufacture solar, all that stuff. You know what I mean? So there is no green technology. And if you watched, Michael Moore's video, it exposed, the
Planet of Humans, right?
Yeah, and it's the ultimately what it is. It's the greatest transfer of money in history from from taxpayers to the elitists, which is crazy.
Oh, it is. It is. Like I remember.
So I like freedom. The last person in Canada that I want making decisions about for my life and my family is Trudeau. Last person in the world that I want making any decisions into. Well, we've seen it. Like we've seen what this guy does.
Yeah, and he just doesn't care. He doesn't show it. He'd rather show off his socks in a NATO summit. And like, from being an ex-soldier, I'm sure you've seen the wear and tear, let's say, from a civilian looking into what our military has gone through, at least since 1968. The amount of spending that has been done to stop things, the amount of spending that has been done to try to replace things, and the lackluster leadership when it comes to the civilian side of things, to looking after our men and women. Like I said, I did 20 years. So I've seen a few prime ministers come and go. And I remember when Chrétien used to say on the CBC, well, let's rent this. And then Paul Martin says, well, let's rent this, but maybe we'll start funding this. And then when Harper came in, okay, there was some money coming in because we were at war in Afghanistan. So there were stability. Now, of course, little potato, I affectionately call him. I sock puppet extraordinaire. I'm sure you've heard my podcast where I've, just praised the man. But the amount of defense spending that has been cut and then spent on the administration, it's ridiculous. And it's the same thing when it comes to our natural resources. We have all this oil here in Alberta, and I know Canadian standards are probably the highest in the world when it comes to processing it to be clean, to give people a fair job, a fair wage.
Yeah.
Because of our labor laws, what have you, and our environmental restrictions. And there's more and more First Nations that are weighing in and getting involved in that too. I'm going to have a conversation tomorrow with Stephen Buffalo, President CEO of IRC Canada. And he gave me a brief on how, a lot of First Nations are really for resource development because they get to have a say in it too. And rightfully so, But we have people in Ottawa who just don't really care about that. They care about their little groups, like you say, the little tribes, little cliques. Look at the trouble the Liberal Party has gone into now with a few of the politicians gambling. and getting caught, breaking the law, assault charges, gambling charges. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's the most, it's the most corrupt system, and they're a bunch of egomaniacs with inferiority complexes, right?
mommy issues, right?
It's like that liberal MP yesterday whining that Michelle Rempel blocked him on social
media. I saw that. Yeah.
He was fucking losing his shit. He was losing his shit because he got blocked on Twitter. Well, maybe you're not that interested.
Oh, he just stand there with his mask on. He's pointing fingers. It's like, how can you take that seriously? It's like pissing Kenny off from South Park. It's just, it's like, yeah. Well, a question for you here. How do you feel about Western alienation?
Yeah, it's, what have we lost? 200,000 jobs in the oil and gas industry,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember I did an event up in Fort McMurray, and they offered a helicopter tour of the oil sands and all that. But what I was more interested in was to see the reclaimed land, and I was blown away at how quickly the land came back. There was herds of buffaloes running around. I was like,
did a wonderful job, didn't they?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And so, we have 9 trillion barrels of oil up in Fleury, and we're buying Saudi oil. So, think about that just think about that for a second. How the Clintons got rich, right? And then Hillary, sort of showed Justin how he could create his own foundation and become, ultra rich as well. And so, I don't know why anybody hasn't, found any concrete stuff on this guy that's, the Prime Minister of Canada, because he's corrupt. It's very easy to see that, he's completely corrupt, and he only cares about himself. And that's not Canadian, right? That has nothing to, those morals and standards that he has is not Canadian values.
No, I agree. I agree. He doesn't like Canada. He even said so himself, not so many words. He calls us a post-national state. He admires China's basic dictatorship. As far as he's concerned, the budget can balance itself. Now that sounds more like a terrible show tune, if anything, but it's proven. And look at how he picks his cabinet too. He wants to keep the numbers game up. And
what I love is when he gets off script, it's fucking hilarious.
Oh, he start almost drooling, right?
left to his own defenses.
He's like, oh, what now? Oh,
complete moron. Complete moron. And the media protects him, so it's ridiculous. Some of the questions he has to answer are just nothing to do with anything that's going on. Nothing.
Yeah, it's a deterrent. It's classic media tactics, right?
Yeah.
There's a fire burning here, but let's talk about the car accident over there, right? That's. I remember taking that in media studies in school. It's like, okay, deterrence. The tune of how many millions of dollars went to the CBC and other conglomerates alone for the sake of write this narrative or else, basically.
Well, CBC was bad before he got there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember when they actually had decent shows on television. And I don't know why they changed their format. There used to be a show I used to like called The Border that was on, I think, in 2008, 2007. It was a decent show. It was about Canadian American border relations, and it really had an impact because of the whole 9/11 thing. I just got back from Afghanistan, so you're really in tune with, you know, terrorists and stuff. So it was a kind of a good show, but then they canceled after 2 or 3 years because, it costs too much money. It's like, well, you've got taxpayer dollars. You have the money to make a decent series or a decent sitcom.
Let's give it to Rosie Barton.
Oh, Rosie.
Oh man, I don't know, man. It's
Don't worry about it. Thank you.
you know, it's frustrating. You know, it's just frustrating to watch, and like if you just pay attention and are somewhat awake, you can totally see what's happening and where this is all headed. And it's not headed to a great place, not a good place.
Well, it's the thing I've told my fans too. It's the last thing I want to see is violence.
Yeah.
Not like our brothers in the States, when they had the George Floyd incident. And okay, it was unfair what happened. Yeah, that cop was out of line. I get it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean every police officer that you and I know, or my wife and I know, or whatever, is going to be a bigoted racist who's going to hold you down and keep your head in the tarmac and restrict you from breathing.
Yeah.
But then when they start talking about racial divide and they start talking about these groups, and it's like, well, I can assume that you were raised in a decent household where you treat people with respect and courtesy. Same here. You're not going to look at another hockey player who happens to be black or Asian and give that individual a hard time. You're going to watch his game and watch how he plays, how he's going to maneuver. Is he going to DK? Is he going to get you in the corners? Is he going to take a slap shot and knock you on your ass? Or you throw the gloves down and you duke it out and he gives you the 1-2 and you're out. See, that's the thing. You watch the actions. I did that as a lacrosse player too, and I never judged anybody who was this or that. It was never an issue for me growing up because my parents would instill in me, you judge people based on their actions. That's simple. And you learn.
Yeah. Well, and we don't have a systemic racist problem.
I agree. Yeah.
What we have is a systemic trauma problem. Okay. Yeah. Trauma is at the core of every single issue we have in society. And when you look at people's reactions, so one of the characteristics of trauma is anger and rage. Okay. Yeah. And so, when you see, these rallies and, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, Proud Boys, or whatever it is, I look at it out of a different lens. Yeah. And what I see is a bunch of people who have unresolved anger issues who now have a place to place this anger that has nothing to do with what's going on today. It just gives them an outlet to release, this unresolved trauma that we have, the reason why mental health is spiking is because we've added another layer of trauma, which is COVID, right? Isolation, no more connection. They're destroying community and they're taking God out of the equation. And when you take God out of the equation, what happens? Chaos and insanity and violence. That's what happens, right? Mm-hmm. And every opportunity that the liberals get to remove God from the equation, they do it, right? People can't go to church.
Yeah, that's...
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not a religious person myself, but I want people to go and pray and do their thing, regardless of faith or origin,
Yeah.
You can go to Walmart and Costco and buy all the goodies you want, but you can't sit in a pew and read a gospel or look at a passage or enjoy your community. Like what is wrong with that?
Well, look, we know the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League just canceled their season.
Really? That's a wow.
You
Jeez.
know, and why does every small town in Canada have an arena?
Yeah.
Well, it's a community. It's a place where you go and your kids have fun. They learn. You know, moms and dads volunteer. They run the local kitchen. You know, and they're destroying community, destroying, completely destroying community. And when you do that, mental health and suicides are going to spike. So that's
Yeah.
right. So it's all like it's systematically, like they have a plan. Like this is part of the plan, and like I said, 24 times this plan has, been enacted and played out. And like the way Trudeau's spending right now, because that's what happens in socialist, communist countries is you eventually run out of everybody else's money. Right?
Yeah.
And, on April 1st, they're adding 33% more to the carbon tax.
And getting themselves a pay raise too.
Of course.
Yeah, pat themselves in the back, right? Oh, yes. Yes. I was looking at my pension readout there the other day, and based on what I get, my terms of service, okay, another $650 goes to tax to that every month.
Yep.
And I'm just like, okay. And now they're breathing down my neck because I owe them a few extra dollars. Luckily, I'm negotiating some things, but not everybody is so fortunate, especially those poor people that get nailed for tickets for associating or protesting, speaking their, the Charter Rights of Freedom, speaking their minds. So I can see your point when people are getting sized up and, hurting the masses. Killing Joke has a great song called The Great Cull. It's off their 2010 album. And it gives you kind of an eerie, I guess you can say, foreshadow. If you can tolerate the band Killing Joke, you listen to that song, The Great Culling. It really has some really puts things in perspective now, more so, let's say, back in 2010.
Right.
That's what I think of. But are you still involved with hockey? Like say as a mentor, as a coach, or anything like that at all?
No.
Minor hockey, junior hockey, anything like that?
I wanted to get as far away from the game as possible.
Really? It impacted you that much?
Well, I was just, I was done. And
just turning the page, basically.
Yeah. And, funny how I sort of landed in the biggest epidemic on the planet,
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And, I've been an advocate and an activist, trying to get rid of stigma attached to, trauma, mental health, and addiction, trying to create safe spaces for people to tell their stories, tell their trauma stories, I work in the prison system in Canada. I work with inmates all over Canada. I work with the military as well. Do a lot of stuff in the military.
Right on.
One of my specialties is PTSD.
Yeah.
I've had my own experience with post-traumatic stress, and so I've been able to sort of reframe that piece of my life, and so I'm able to walk into any room and really feel comfortable, because I know that the majority of people either have trauma or haven't talked about their trauma, and
have a good day.
I tell my story in a very vulnerable way, and that vulnerability, obviously creates safety. And then when you have safety in a room, that's when the magic of healing happens, is when people feel safe, and so that's kind of, and I like when I was done playing, like I was done,
like you shut it out. That was it. No more.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, and I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try something new. I wanted to, be a entrepreneur and, all those things that I missed while I was playing hockey, so, um, and, there's nothing glamorous about being a professional athlete other than the paycheck. That's it,
And I guess it was a good paycheck, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was a great paycheck. It was a great paycheck. I would have played for free. So, it wasn't about the money. To me, it was about winning.
Yeah.
That's what it was about.
So speaking of winning, what was the sensation you were feeling when you got that gold medal? 2002, I believe, right? Salt Lake City. I remember watching that series, and I was just like, that was my dad had the Canada Cup in '72, and I think 2002 was, I guess, my Canada Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just, yes. What were you feeling when you heard that final buzzer go? Yeah.
Well, I think I was just in awe the whole time, and the fact that we hadn't won a gold medal in 50 years of playing in the Olympics, was pretty.
Think we're overdue? Yeah.
Well, and then I was there in '98 as well in Nagano when we brought sort of the first Canadian dream team to the Olympics, and we finished 4th, and that was hard pill to swallow, But what we did is we learned a lot about that experience, and then took all that learning stuff and implemented it in 2002. And, having Gretz, run the show was, was pretty amazing. And what he did was because, the first Olympics, we had to figure out our families and tickets and what they were doing, all that stuff. So there was a lot of distractions in '98. And then when we got to Salt Lake in 2002, there was no distractions because Gretz took care of all of the off ice stuff because he's a very
logistics, what have you.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy. And so we just had to focus on playing hockey. And when we focused on playing hockey, it was, it was easy to get the job done. But, that team was, stacked, as stacked as, you're going to get. Like, for example, I played on the 4th line with Joe Newendike and Brendan Shanahan. And, I think we had, as a line, 1,600 career goals in the NHL, 3,000 points.
Jeez.
And we were the 4th line.
So you're qualified. Yeah, you're qualified. You're good. I'd say you're qualified.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like when you're a kid growing up in Canada playing road hockey, you dream about playing the NHL. You don't, the Olympics was still an amateur endeavor. And, then we get to the NHL and then we're allowed to go to the Olympics. And so, none of us were thinking early on in our careers that, this was even a possibility and that it became a possibility. And so, yeah. And, I think when I was 16 years old, Hockey Canada created this program called the Program of Excellence. And so I kind of went up through this program of excellence. And as a direct result, of this program, I played for Canada 10 times in my career. So I played under 17, under 18, 2 World Juniors, 2 World Championships, 2 World Cups of hockey, and 2 Olympic Games. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to expose us young players to international competition.
Okay, kind of like a European model.
Yeah, and so, when I got to, the Olympics in '98 and 2002, I was very familiar with the teams that we were playing against, the Russians, the Finns, the Czechs, the Swedes, all because I played against them a lot, and, knew what their tendencies were. We knew what to expect, the bigger ice surface, all that stuff. And so, and not only that, I grew so much as a human being, being able to travel, and play hockey for Team Canada and go into different countries. And, I played in 2 World Juniors, and both World Juniors were, the first year was in communist Czechoslovakia, and then the next year.
The 87 juniors, right?
Yeah.
The blackout.
Yeah. And then the following.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the following year was in Moscow, was in the Soviet Union. And we went in there and stole the gold medal right from them. So it was pretty, it was a great experience. And every time I played for Team Canada, I knew I had an opportunity to win. Right. And, ultimately that's why we play the game is to win. That's why we get paid. We get paid to win. You don't get paid to lose.
Of course.
And so every opportunity that I got to play for Canada was an opportunity to win because you're playing with, the best players in Canada. So yeah. And the Olympics was, was the cherry on top of the sundae, and, I should have just retired.
Just right after that. Say, see, I'm done,
Because my motivation was no longer there after we won the Olympics, and because I pretty much accomplished everything that I needed to accomplish in the game. I won a World Junior, Turner Cup, Canada Cup, Stanley Cup, Yeah.
You got the gold medal, and you're good now.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Appreciate that too.
Yeah. No problem.
Jay DeRoger, I refuse to support professional sports leagues anymore. They deemed essential, yet people are losing their livelihoods and freedoms. What's your say on that, Mr. Fleury?
Well, everybody's entitled to their, their own choices and their own opinions. Obviously, I'm obviously a fan of all sports, and I think I watched all of Netflix. Like I can't watch anything else on Netflix.
Yeah. My wife and I are the same way. It's like Netflix. Oh, again.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so, being able to watch hockey and baseball and basketball and all that, kind of gives your brain a break from, the reality of the insanity which is going on. It just kind of gives you a break from, like I said, the insanity. So, but, there's a lot of people that are, sort of down on everything, when, let's face it, professional sports, franchises are owned by, guess who? The elite, so I could see, where Jay is coming from. And I understand that. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Like honestly, I haven't watched an NHL game since I think 2013. What did it for me personally was the last strike that they had. Nobody in my circle ever questioned the credibility or the efforts of the athletes, the players. We just got really tired of the big business model all the time because you look forward to watching the game or even going to a game for that matter too, and then you're paying through the wahoo.
Oh yeah.
And the last professional game I actually saw, last professional sports game I saw was watching the Edmonton Rush play the Calgary Roughnecks. When lacrosse was in Edmonton, and I love that game. For $50, you get the gold seats at the old Northlands.
Yeah.
And you'll watch a good game. And the shortest guy I think on that roster might have been about 5'10". Everyone else is like,
I know.
You're looking up.
they do a really good job. Lacrosse does a really good job. It's a very it's a fun atmosphere.
Yeah. and entertaining, and it's rough, it's rugged.
Yep.
These guys get into a scrap, but then a couple minutes later, okay, they're back on the bench, they serve the penalty, and they're back on the floor again, just giving 100%.
Yeah.
And this skill and the teamwork and even the sportsmanship there too. When someone gets hurt, everyone stops and they go, okay, let's get this guy up and then carry on. You're not going to find the dramatic soccer player stances where, oh, my knee. Oh, and as much as I love English football, sometimes I look at these guys going, really? Come on, like, suck it up. Like,
I know.
You just banged your kneecaps. It sucks. I know it really hurts, but you just kind of shake it off and carry on,
I get it.
Well, another question here from a fan. He didn't identify himself, but he wants to thank you for sharing all your stories and bringing awareness to sexual abuse. And myself, I want to thank you too for doing that, for being brave to get out there and say it, to expose it for what it is. And like you mentioned earlier in the show too, that it's not just little girls that get hurt, little boys get hurt too, from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And are you seeing, like, say, like a 50-50, or is it like just a different percentile, but you're seeing more and more coming out of the woodwork?
Well, I would say that, there's like, it's equal,
Yeah.
Because what was interesting, when I was on the book tour, it wasn't like 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds that were coming to the book table to tell me their stories. It was guys, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s that,
Wow.
have been carrying the secret around for, decades. And, I know how much wreckage I caused, and I got sober when I was 36 and then started repairing all the relationships, in my life. And I just have so much compassion and empathy for these men who, carry this secret around and the amount of damage that they cause in their, in their lives with kids and wives and, all that stuff. So it's, and being that sort of safe person that where people seek me out, is it's pretty amazing. And so I've always been able to take something negative and turn it into something positive. And so by telling my own story, and that's where I would say the beginning of my journey started, is when I told my story. And, I was embraced, I was embraced by Canadians, and because not a lot of people have the same experience that I do when they tell a sexual abuse story. Most people aren't believed. And especially if it's a family member, they usually side with the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to, they don't want to do their own work around it, and so, it's a tough deal, and, what's left behind from, sexual abuse is, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of addiction issues. Addiction is used as a coping mechanism to suppress the emotional pain and scars that are left behind from that kind of experience. But there's all different kinds of abuse, right? There's emotional, physical, sexual, spiritual, abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And and this has been going on for since Adam and Eve.
I used to say in the army, since Christ was a cowboy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
yeah, so it's not a new dynamic. It's just you're finding more and more bravery people coming out because you look at certain aspects of our societies. Like say turn of the 20th century. If you were 14 or 15 years old and you weren't married off in some cultures, that's like, what's wrong with you? But I think a lot of us are starting to wake up, and I'm not going to use the term woke. To me, that's just lazy English. Oh, I'm so woke. It's like, you mean you're awake? There you go. We're seeing, especially with innovations when it comes to PTSD. Now, I was diagnosed in 2014. I had my issues, and like you say, experiences vary. Some of the lads that I used to talk to about the issue, some of them are not here with us today because of some of the stigmas and the government ignorance and certain administrative ignorance too, and the stigmas. You're right. It becomes overwhelming. I was drinking myself all the time.
Yeah.
Before I met my wife, I was quite, pardon the pun, man whore.
Yeah.
So I just no regard. Every weekend I was drinking, but I was out playing sports too. So I was active.
Right.
Soccer, lacrosse. Okay, but I was focused on nulling the pain, not dealing with the demons.
Yeah.
And then about a couple of years,
there is no place in society.
Yeah.
For you to talk about that, right? And that's part of the stigma, right? Is I can't talk about this. I'm not allowed to talk about this, right? And you're an Army guy.
Yeah.
I'm an NHL player. I'm an NHL player, right? We're handled exactly the same way, right?
Yeah. Suck it up, carry on.
Yeah. Well, the reason why we have an epidemic of mental illness and addiction is because of the suck it up era.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're all in our 50s, 60s, 70s, and we're having issues, right? And so therapy's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Therapy's a good thing, You got to talk about it, because if you allow it to fester, a lot of bad things happen.
Yeah, that's hard on your soul.
Yeah. Well, it's hard on your nervous system. It's hard on your brain. It's hard on your heart.
Everything.
Right?
And the ones that count on you too.
Yeah. Because when you live in stress all the time, your body produces this chemical called cortisol, and cortisol is like acid in your body. And so where does disease love to live? It loves to live in an acidic body. So that's why people develop cancer and diabetes and all these, your liver, your kidneys, your gut, is, under tremendous stress. And when you're under stress, your body doesn't work properly.
Yeah.
And
some powers of be forget that too, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing being resilient to situations. It's another thing when you can't constantly told to suck it up. You're going to have to vent one way or the other. And like you nailed on the head with alcohol, with drugs, pornography, anger. Some guys fight. Some guys beat themselves up. Mm-hmm. Some people beat up their partners, male and female alike.
Yeah,
so it's not necessarily
just violence too is at an all-time high as well, right?
Exactly. And now these clowns want to bring in C7 too. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, okay, they're there. Yeah. If you want to check out, then you can check out. We'll support it by tax dollars. It's like, what kind of encouragement is that?
Well, part of the ideology is genocide, right? Mm. But I'm a conspiracy theorist. So.
Oh, me too.
Look out.
Some crazy right-wing nut. Yeah, I'm more liberty-based, if anything. So
yeah.
I got a question here from Gil Gilbert. He is the human resources guy or public relations guy for the VCP. I ask you, Mr. Fleury, have you heard of the VCP and what's your stance on having all MPPs and MPs wages reduced by 30%? And of course, what's your take on the COVID restrictions?
Yeah. Well, good luck trying to get them to reduce their salaries. That's not going to happen, right? The VCP, I heard about it 20 minutes ago. So,
well, I'll send you a link later if you like.
That'd be great. That would be great. Yeah. And what do you take on COVID restrictions? 99.7% survival rate. So
yeah, it's like respiratory infection. If I had a chronic illness, let's say if I had like chronic asthma or something, it might affect me more than, let's say, my neighbor or this person. I personally wear a mask when I go to the store because I just don't want to be bothered, honestly. I just think, okay, whatever, I'll just put the mask on. But when I'm out,
I'm the same way. But
I'll do my thing.
Other than not being able to travel, my life hasn't really changed a whole lot. I live a pretty simple, basic life. And in the summertime, I'm at the golf course all day, every day, right?
That must be nice. I do have a set of clubs. I'm mentioning to get them out again. So maybe we can play about 9 holes.
To me, for my mental health, it's the best pill that I take every day is, I'm outside, my 2 boys and my dad play. So we have sort of a built-in foursome. So, we get together almost every day and play and enjoy each other's company and all that. So, there's a great community of people at my golf course. I see the same people every day, and, I'm happy to see them. They're happy to see me. And, it just fills my heart chakra, and makes me want to get out of bed. Right.
Serenity.
Yeah, absolutely. I lived a pretty fast life, playing professional hockey, and I have an amazing wife and partner, and
you and me both, yeah.
And we just live a real simple, basic life, and I'm not interested in trying to make $50 million. I'm just want to maintain what I have because I'm happy,
a balance.
And ultimately that's where we're all trying to get to. And unfortunately, these so-called leaders, are trying to fuck with my serenity.
Yeah, and they're doing it for everybody's serenity too.
Yeah.
Right. On my last episode, I put a number up there for people to reach out in regards to mental health. Let's say 911, and the Royal Canadian Legion has a number you can call. They're open 24 hours a day. Yeah. So I make sure that my listeners get a hold of that too.
I'm available 24/7 too. So
exactly, I'll put. Actually, I will just put this banner up now if I can, Mr. What is the best way someone can reach you?
Just go through my website, theofleury.life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small case?
Yeah.
Okay. Put that up there for you. Yeah, so there we go. So yeah, you can talk to Theo Fleury, ladies and gentlemen.
FLEURY.
Oh, EUR. Okay, my mistake. Yes, I'll fix that. Pardon my spelling. Yeah. There we go. There we are. Perfect. Let's see. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, any more questions, Mr. Fleury or myself, please feel free to ask. Jill asks again. Recently pointed out some store employees the COVID-19 mandate stickers that are posted from health authorities. They must adhere to mask exemptions of some people, as it is clearly stated in those health orders. Sticker businesses have posted for people to follow and walk away. Okay. I guess there's a thing with stickers now in businesses, or
I don't know. Like I said, I go to my physio appointments. I go to the grocery store once a week, and other than that, I'm just doing my own thing.
Just chill.
Yeah.
Live in your own serenity, which is good.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here. How much time do you have left with you, sir? There.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. So give me whatever questions you can in here, ladies and gentlemen. Put it up there before. I am with Theo Fleury, NHL great, gold medalist, sexual assault survivor, all around nice guy, political aficionado now too. Did you ever think of getting into politics yourself? Maybe.
No,
No, just nothing to do with
I've
it.
been asked,
Yeah.
been asked several times. I just think, you'll you go in with good intentions and leave with really bad intentions. That's the culture, that's there.
Yeah.
I remember going in to talk about sexual abuse in front of a bunch of MPs, and it was like I've never been in a room with so many stupid people. Honest to God, it was honestly, it was unbelievable, unbelievable.
We had an entourage in France. We went to Vimy Ridge to bring home the unknown soldier, and there was an entourage with that too, and it was like a bad 80s preppy movie, just all these hobgobblers. But I'll get one more question before you go there, Theo. Have either of us heard of Earl Silverman? I guess he was a Saskatchewan. I guess he lived in Saskatchewan. I guess from what I heard, he set up a men's shelter. You know anything about him at all?
No.
And maybe we'll get some information on that anyway. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today my guest has been Mr. Theo Fleury, NHL great, Olympic gold medalist, philanthropist, writer, author, composer, all-around good guy, husband, father, sexual assault survivor, and mentor to those who need it. Please follow him, Theo Fleury.life, theofleury.life, if you have any questions, or you can pass me questions. I can pass them to you later on in time. However, and my guest has been Theo Fleury. Thank you very much, Theo. My wife said she volunteered for victim services, and she wants to thank you too for your efforts and bringing awareness to this too. So that's for my wife.
Thanks. Well, I dedicated the rest of my life to this cause. So,
well, that's excellent.
I'm in it.
Right on. As we say in the Army, hooah. And you've got a friend here at the Crusty podcast, Theo. Please come by anytime if you like.
Yeah, love to. I love talking stupidism, which is a form of liberalism. So,
well, at least the new liberalism now, it's like new Coke, right? The new Coke thing that happened, it just didn't really work. Same colors, just this tastes pretty shitty. Exactly. I'm gonna stick with Pepsi.
That's right. There you go.
Or just not drink it at all.
So. Yeah. And make sure you go get your Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head.
Or is it just Potato Head?
Yeah. I'm still calling them Mr. and Mrs. So
exactly. I'm gonna watch Pepe Le Pew, read more Dr. Zeus, and carry the F on. So exactly. Yep. Like I say, my guest today was Mr. Theo Fleury in a very, very special Crusty Canuck FastBall Wednesday edition. I appreciate you all come out. Great questions. Like I say, you can reach Mr. Theo Fleury at theofleury.life or theofleury.life. And if you have any other questions you want to ask him, please email me and I'll send it off to his chain of command per se.
Cheers.
So this has been Crusty Canuck FastBall Wednesday edition. My guest was Mr. Theo Fleury. Thank you again, sir, for your insight and what you do and the work you do. Keep trucking, keep rocking on and all that stuff, and we'll do the same.
You too, man.
All right. Cheers. Thanks for coming out.
Man. Cheers, guys. Thanks. Bye.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That was Mr. Theo Fleury. He was kind of rushed for time. He's got a busy schedule. And thank you all my listeners and viewers alike for coming out to the stream. It was really good to have him as a guest. I had to book him a month and a half, but he's a busy fellow. So please let him give you insight. If you have any problems or queries or questions, you can just follow the address on the screen. Any more questions for myself? Morning, Taz. How you doing? Tori, sorry there, Sanico. Didn't mean to catch up. It was just getting in depth there with Mr. Fleury. Had to make sure that we had enough time for him to say his thing and do his thing, all that good stuff. So I'll stay on for a couple more minutes, ladies and gentlemen, if you like. But it was really good to have him as a guest. So Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen, before I sign off in this special edition of the Crusty Canuck Fastball, the Wednesday edition? Canadian Insanity morning. Earl Silverman. Yeah, sorry, Jill, I didn't get that question out for you. If you can send me a link to Zenko, if you send me a link to that, I might incorporate it in a show sometime. No problem, Lori. No problem. The show was, to me, it was a success. Can't speak English today. But please feel free to inquire for updates, what have you. So, like I say, ladies and gentlemen, if you do like and hear what you see, you can by all means check out the Veterans Coalition Party of Canada. You see at the bottom of the screen there, right? Just type in VCP and you'll see that Veterans Coalition Party, made up of all walks of life. And stay tuned with me for tomorrow afternoon too. I have another special guest. I have Stephen Buffalo, President and CEO of the IRC, Indian Resources Council of Canada. We'll have a little discussion in regards to oil resources in this country and how Miss Jane Fonda likes to keep her head in her butt. So tune into that if you can, ladies and gentlemen. And if you feel like donating, people, please feel free to donate, crustycanuck.ca. You'll find my donation links in the bottom of the page when you click on that. Just click on the PayPal or the Buy Me a Coffee application there too. And please consider checking out the shop, customizedgirl.com/s/CrustyCanuck. Right, you've got t-shirts, got swagger. Summertime is coming, so I have shorts, got swimsuits for the ladies, hats, tank tops. By all means, check it all out, folks. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen, before I shut this down for another day? Seneco, yes, please send me a link there. You've got my email, so you can do that if you can. So, recommend having honey badgers. Yes, I've heard about the honey badgers, and I'm familiar with Karen Strawn. Yes, I like her work. Her sarcasm is fantastic. Yes, I've seen her on the Red Pill documentary by Cassie J. There. That's an incredible documentary, by the way. So I recommend that as well. So, yes, check that out. So I'll get a few more questions in here, ladies and gentlemen, before we shut this down. Once again, I want to thank Mr. Theo Fleury for coming out, giving us his time. A wonderful conversation, to say the least. Just laid back, two dudes talking politics, shop, a bit of hockey, a bit of sports, and the whole COVID issue, too. Thank you again, Mr. Fleury, for giving me your time and your insight and your wisdom on said dilemmas, especially now with the COVID crisis ever looming and the lies we're being told by a lot of politicians and leaders alike. So, Canadian insanity. Yeah, well, the old red ensign, it's part of our history. So, that's part of our history. So, we have to keep our history alive. Who cares who gets offended by it? If someone's offended by it, then they don't have to look at it or buy one themselves. So, that's the thing. Justin Mears, Black Lives Matters and men's rights movement. Well, I guess it started off with good intentions, but they've also had Marxist training too. So, partially. Well, okay, But as far as I'm concerned, all lives matter. Anyone who gets killed by a police officer should be investigated. If that person was a criminal or committed a criminal offense and they threatened the police officer's life, then every police officer that I have met had every right to do what they have to do. Yes, we know there is imperfections in our society when it comes to policing, but that doesn't mean every police officer is a bad guy. That doesn't mean every criminal is innocent either, too. So put things in perspective, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I'm going to put this up again, Justin. Yes, liberty-minded people should take back the word liberal. Yeah, I agree too. But then again, liberty just works as well. Any more questions, folks, before I shut this episode down? Like I say, if you like and hear what you see, by all means, please consider donating. I like to make this a full-time commitment. Not only do I do the live streams every week, but I also try to get 2 episodes up a week for my podcast. And if there's anybody out there that would like to sponsor, let me advertise your product or your service or your wares on my show, let me know. CrustyBCanuck67@gmail.com. Right? I'll even put that in the banner there. Yeah. All right. So if you want to send me an email, please, CrustyBCanuck67@gmail.com. We can go from there. So if you want me to advertise or anything, please. Like I said, I want to make the podcast a full-time commitment. I need viewers and listeners such as yourself. So please consider today. So let's see here. Okay. Well, thanks to you, my viewers. This episode has been very, very successful. Without you viewers and backers, this would not be possible. So and take care, Justin. Like I say, ladies and gentlemen, if you like and hear what you see, please click like and subscribe, all that good stuff. This will be on my live stream feed on YouTube, and it's being saved on Facebook. It's live right now. Please click like, subscribe, share this around. Help us independent folk get the word out there. And stay tuned for tomorrow. I have the regular Thursday fastball. My guest will be Mr. Stephen Buffalo. I say again, Mr. Stephen Buffalo, President CEO of the IRC, Indian Resources Council. We'll have a good talk about energy sectors. We'll have a good talk about some of the protests and how this lack of building of the pipeline is not just affecting Alberta and Saskatchewan, but how it's affecting the First Nations in the areas too. So please stay tuned for that. Right. So, and then I'll probably have another episode of the podcast probably Friday or Saturday. So stay tuned. And please check out my recent episodes on YouTube and Podbean, respectively. Get the likes and the shares going around, keep the algorithm going up. Help us independent folk, because I guess apparently YouTube has been cutting down on certain voices they deemed as conservative. Anyhow, like I say, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the 24th of March, Wednesday edition of the Crusty Canuck Thursday Fastball. Like I say, look after your friends and your loved ones. Do what you can for each other in these trying times. And like I say, remember, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and thank you all for coming out. Bye for now.